welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, what you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at The Dominators, a story which I've been planning to do for so long and I just haven't been able to do it, but here we are, finally. I hope you enjoy. The Quarks were created as another attempt to create a monster with the same merchandising potential as the popular Daleks. The pacifist Dalkians were originally conceived as satire on the 1960s hippie subculture. When originally written, the story was originally 6 parts, but it was discovered how short the story was, and as such only 5 parts were made in the end. Producer Peter Byratt ordered Heisman and Lincoln to abandon writing the 6th episode, and the script editor Derek Sherwin rewrote the 5th episode to provide a conclusion. Heisman and Lincoln were not informed of this, or of the BBC's merchandising of the Quarks, which led to their refusal to write for the series again. As a result of 5 parts, the Mind Robber also ended up having only 5 parts. Patrick Troughton was absent from all the location filming sessions. A double played the role of the Doctor in all the location footage, his face being clearly visible in some shots. The Dominators is perhaps infamous for being a story that was rediscovered while Patrick Troughton was eager to see it again for his birthday party, only for Patrick Troughton to suffer a heart attack and sadly die before ever getting the chance to re-watch the completed serial. Episode 3 was recorded on a 35mm black and white film, as opposed to the usual 625 line PAL black and white videotape, to make editing easier. The episode was not identified by any on-screen caption, and this was inadvertently omitted on the recording day. The Quarks were played by children from a nearby acting school. They were voiced by an adult woman doing a childlike voice with something of a public schoolboy sound. Jelly babies make their debut in this story. This is the only Doctor Who story directed by Maurice Barry not to feature the Cybermen, and the only story written by Heisman and Lincoln not to feature the Robot Yeti or the Great Intelligence. With a length of 5 episodes, this was the longest season opening story of the classic series. Arthur Cox, who had a major role in the story, is one of around half a dozen performers who have acted in the black and white era and the 21st century era. Whilst the Quarks never reappeared on screen, they have appeared in several comics and other merchandise, and they appeared in a Captain Jack fact file about the Vestiform, where apparently the Quarks and the Vestiform went to war. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. The Dominators is your sort of run-of-the-mill second Doctor story. It's one of those really forgettable ones, if I'm perfectly honest. Like the Quarks look silly. Like I don't know what else to say. They look silly. How exactly these things were going to create merchandise and rival the Daleks, I do not know. Especially when you had the Cybermen and the Yeti beforehand, and even the Ice Warriors, which were so much better. I guess, robots are cool. I guess in a weird way, I do sort of like the idea that this, like, brutal Dominators are, hiring the Quarks to do their bidding to, attack and enslave this pacifist, nation, more or less. I guess that's kind of a fun idea. They do sort of play on that. Pacifism doesn't really solve anything, especially when there's a brutal force that is coming, right on your doorstep. But overall, this is a very, very run-of-the-mill story, if I'm perfectly honest. There's nothing really special to say about it. Like, this is definitely a second Doctor story where, one of the problems which I have with a lot of second Doctor stories is that a lot of them do feel more or less the same, and this unfortunately feels very much the same. Usually the best ones are the ones which felt very unique and, different enough to really go, wow, that's so amazing. But unfortunately this one isn't that case. It's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah. It is quite an unfortunate story because this was obviously discovered around the time that Patrick Troughton sadly passed away. So of course, Patrick Troughton, who was going to celebrate his birthday and rewatch the completed, rediscovered Dominators, sadly died before we even got the chance, which is a real big shame, all things considered. So yeah, this story is somewhat cursed. Not only just because of that, but also, the directors and the writers, having protested against the BBC and all that. Yeah, this definitely didn't seem to go very well. This is a very cursed story, The Dominators. But I hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.